What if everything you've been taught about human nature is only half the truth? What if kindness isn't always rewarded, honesty isn't always appreciated, and loyalty isn't nearly as permanent as you believe? Most people spend their lives expecting others to behave according to principles. They assume that if they're good, others will be good in return. They believe trust is permanent, friendships are unconditional, and hard work naturally earns respect. But history tells a different story. More than 500 years ago, one man dared to write what most people were too afraid to admit. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. To some, he was a political philosopher. To others, he was cynical, manipulative, even dangerous. His name became synonymous with deception and ruthless ambition. Yet if you look beyond the controversy, you'll discover something unsettling. Many of Machiavelli's observations about human nature remain painfully accurate today. He wasn't necessarily telling people how the world should work. He was describing how it often does work when power, fear, ambition, and self-interest come into play. That's why his ideas continue to influence politicians, CEOs, military strategists, negotiators, and even psychologists centuries later. This video isn't about encouraging manipulation or cruelty. It's about recognizing patterns, understanding the hidden motivations behind people's actions, protecting yourself from blind trust, and seeing the world with clearer eyes. Because once you understand these lessons, you'll start noticing behaviors you never paid attention to before. You'll understand why some people suddenly disappear after you've helped them, why others praise you publicly but secretly compete with you, why power changes people, why promises are often temporary, and why emotions can be far stronger than logic. Some of these lessons may challenge your beliefs, others may make you uncomfortable, but discomfort often accompanies truth. As you watch, don't think only about politicians or powerful leaders. Think about your workplace, your friendships, your relationships, your family, and even yourself. Because Machiavelli believed the greatest battlefield isn't politics, it's human nature. Let's begin. People are more loyal to their interests than to you. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is this: many people are loyal until loyalty becomes expensive. Think about that. As long as supporting you costs them nothing, they'll cheer for you, they'll encourage you, they'll stand beside you, they'll call you their friend. But the moment helping you requires sacrifice, everything changes. Suddenly, they're busy. Suddenly, they've changed their mind. Suddenly, they have reasons they never mentioned before. This isn't because everyone is evil. It's because self-preservation is deeply rooted human psychology. Machiavelli understood this hundreds of years ago. He observed that people often act according to what benefits them most in the present moment, not necessarily according to promises they made in the past, not according to emotions, not according to principles, but according to interest. Think about elections. Before elections, politicians promise everything: better health care, more jobs, lower taxes, improved education. Why? Because at that moment, those promises serve their interests. After the election, some promises disappear, the interest is changed. Now think smaller. Imagine a colleague at work. When you're successful and connected, everyone wants to know you. People invite you to meetings, they compliment your ideas, they seek your advice. Then imagine you lose your position. Your influence fades, your phone becomes quieter, the invitations stop. Some people who once admired you barely acknowledge your presence. Did they suddenly become bad people? Not necessarily. Their interests simply shifted. This pattern appears throughout history. When businesses are thriving, investors compete to invest. When businesses struggle, many investors disappear. When athletes win championships, they have countless friends. When their careers decline, many of those friendships vanish. Success attracts interest. Failure reveals loyalty. There's a major difference between people who love you and people who love what you can provide. Unfortunately, many confuse the two. Machiavelli encourages us to observe actions rather than words. Anyone can make promises, anyone can express support when circumstances are favorable, but true character appears when helping you becomes inconvenient. Psychologists call this reciprocal behavior. Many relationships operate like invisible transactions. I'll support you because one day you might support me. I'll stay close because you benefit me. I'll remain loyal because it's profitable. This doesn't mean every relationship is fake. Far from it. There are genuinely loyal people. The problem is that they're much rarer than most imagine. Real loyalty survives discomfort. It survives disagreement. It survives difficult seasons. It's easy to stand beside someone during celebration. It's much harder during humiliation. Think about history's greatest leaders. When they were rising, supporters surrounded them. When fortunes changed, many allies became enemies almost overnight. The same generals who once praised kings sometimes betrayed them when another ruler offered greater rewards. This wasn't unusual, it was predictable, because interest often defeats sentiment. Now consider social media. Someone gains millions of followers. Everyone wants collaborations. Brands compete for partnerships. Friends proudly post old pictures together. Then a scandal occurs. Followers disappear. Sponsors withdraw. Some friends suddenly claim they were never close. Again, interest has shifted. This doesn't happen because human beings are uniquely cruel. It happens because survival instincts influence decision-making more than we'd like to admit. People naturally move toward opportunity. They naturally move away from perceived risk. Knowing this changes how you interpret people's behavior. Instead of asking, "Why did they betray me?" you begin asking, "What changed in their interests?" That's often where the real answer lies. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming permanent loyalty based on temporary circumstances. Someone helps you during one chapter, you conclude they'll always be there years later. Life changes, priorities change, families change, financial situations change, career ambitions change, and relationships change with them. This doesn't mean you should become paranoid. It means you should become observant. Watch patterns. Who remains when there's nothing to gain? Who supports you privately instead of only publicly? Who tells you uncomfortable truths instead of flattering you? Who celebrates your success without becoming resentful? Those people are priceless. Protect those relationships. At the same time, avoid building your life around the expectation that everyone will stay, because disappointment often comes from unrealistic expectations rather than malicious intentions. Another dangerous mistake is becoming emotionally dependent on public approval. Crowds are famously inconsistent. They celebrate today's hero, tomorrow they celebrate someone else. Fame changes, popularity changes, public opinion changes. If your confidence depends entirely on applause, your emotional stability becomes controlled by strangers. Machiavelli believed wise people build inner stability instead of relying on external validation, because public favor can disappear faster than it arrives. There's another side to this lesson. You should also examine yourself. Are you loyal only when it's convenient? Do you disappear when friends experience hardship? Do you support people only while they're successful? Human nature isn't something that affects only others. It affects all of us. Recognizing this creates humility. Instead of judging everyone else, we begin correcting ourselves. Perhaps the greatest lesson isn't that people pursue self-interest. It's remembering that we often do the same without realizing it. Awareness is the beginning of wisdom. The more honestly you understand human nature, the less likely you are to become bitter. You'll appreciate genuine loyalty when you find it. You'll stop expecting impossible consistency from imperfect people. And you'll make wiser decisions about who deserves your trust. Because, in the end, words create impressions, but sacrifice reveals loyalty. And that's a lesson few people ever forget once. They've learned it.
People fear losing more than they desire. Gaining. Imagine offering someone two choices. In the first option, you tell them they have a chance to win 1 million naira. In the second option, you tell them they might lose 1 million naira that they already own. Which emotion do you think is stronger? Excitement. Or fear? For most people, the fear of losing something they already possess is far more powerful than the excitement of gaining something new. This is one of the deepest truths about human nature. People don't simply chase rewards. They fight desperately to avoid losses. Centuries before modern psychology gave this tendency a name, Machiavelli understood it through observation. He noticed that rulers who threatened people's possessions often created more enemies than rulers who simply failed to offer new benefits. Why? Because people can forgive missed opportunities, but they rarely forgive losing what they believe is already theirs. Think about your own life. Perhaps you've misplaced your phone. Within seconds, your heart races. Your mind begins imagining the worst. You search every pocket, every room, every bag. Notice something interesting. You don't react with the same intensity when thinking about buying a brand new phone. The emotional pain of losing the old one is much greater than the joy of imagining a better one. That is human nature. Now consider the workplace. A company announces a salary increase. Employees are happy, but the excitement fades after a few months. Now imagine the opposite. The company announces a salary reduction. The reaction is immediate. People complain. Morale drops. Some begin looking for new jobs. The emotional impact is far greater, because losses hurt more than gains satisfy. This principle appears everywhere. Businesses know it. Governments know it. Advertisers know it. That's why many advertisements don't begin by promising success. Instead, they warn you about what you could lose. You could lose your savings. You could lose your health. You could miss this opportunity. Fear often motivates action faster than hope. Even relationships reflect this principle. Sometimes people don't appreciate their partner while the relationship is healthy. They become comfortable. They assume that person will always be there. Then one day, the relationship ends. Suddenly, they realize what they've lost. The attention they ignored now becomes priceless. The conversations they once found ordinary become unforgettable. The absence creates value. Machiavelli recognized this pattern among leaders. A wise ruler understood that taking away people's security, property, or dignity would often create lasting resentment. People remember losses for years, sometimes for generations. History is full of examples. Entire revolutions have begun because people believed something important had been taken from them. Their freedom, their rights, their land, their opportunities. Loss creates emotion. Emotion creates action. Modern psychologists call this loss aversion. Studies repeatedly show that losing £100 feels significantly more painful than gaining £100 feels pleasurable. The amounts may be equal. The emotions are not. This explains why investors panic during market crashes. Instead of calmly evaluating long-term opportunities, many sell everything out of fear. The pain of seeing numbers fall overwhelms rational thinking. Ironically, some of the greatest fortunes in history have been built by people who remained calm while everyone else reacted emotionally. They understood that fear often distorts judgment. Now think about friendships. Someone may overlook 10 acts of kindness, but one perceived betrayal can erase years of goodwill. Why? Because the emotional weight of loss overshadows previous gains. This doesn't mean people are irrational. It means emotions influence decision-making more than logic alone. If you understand this, you begin communicating differently. Instead of asking, "What can I give people?" you also ask, "What do they fear losing?" Respect? Security? Freedom? Recognition? Identity? Understanding those fears gives you insight into behavior that once seemed confusing. However, this lesson also carries a warning. Don't allow fear of loss to control your entire life. Many people stay in unhealthy relationships because they're afraid of losing familiarity. Others remain in careers they hate because they're afraid of losing stability. Some never start businesses because they're afraid of losing money. Ironically, by avoiding temporary losses, they create permanent regret. The greatest opportunities often require accepting short-term discomfort. Machiavelli wasn't encouraging people to live in fear. He was reminding us that fear is one of the strongest forces driving human behavior. Wise people recognize it, but they refuse to become its prisoner. The next time someone makes a surprising decision, ask yourself, were they chasing success, or were they trying to avoid losing something? Very often, you'll discover it was the second. Never reveal all your intentions. Imagine you're playing a game of chess. Before making your move, you announce every strategy to your opponent. I'll sacrifice this piece. Then I'll attack your queen. After that, I'll corner your king. How long do you think you'd keep winning? Not very long. Yet this is exactly how many people live their lives. They reveal every ambition, every plan, every dream, every next step. And then they wonder why nothing works out. Machiavelli believed that wisdom often requires discretion. Not because every person is your enemy, but because not everyone wants to see you succeed. This is a difficult truth to accept. Many people assume that everyone who smiles at them secretly hopes for their success. Reality is often more complicated. Some people genuinely celebrate your progress. Others compare themselves to you. Some become inspired. Others become envious. The challenge is that envy rarely introduces itself honestly. It hides behind compliments. It disguises itself as concern. Sometimes it even pretends to offer advice. Imagine telling everyone you're about to launch a business. At first, everyone seems excited. But soon, the questions begin. Are you sure this is the right time? What if you fail? Isn't the market already crowded? Maybe you should wait another year. Some of this advice comes from genuine concern, but some comes from people who unconsciously project their own fears onto your future. If you absorb enough doubt, you may eventually abandon the idea altogether. Nothing external stopped you. The battle was won inside your own mind. Machiavelli understood that information is power. The person who knows more often has the advantage. The person who reveals less often has greater flexibility. This doesn't mean becoming secretive about everything. It means understanding timing. Announcing success after achieving it is often wiser than announcing it before it exists. Think about athletes. Many train quietly for years before the world notices them. They don't spend every day announcing each workout. They simply keep improving. Then one day people call their success overnight. It wasn't overnight. It was simply invisible. The same is true in business. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs spend months or even years developing products before revealing them. Why? Because unfinished ideas are fragile. Too much outside influence can destroy them before they mature. Dreams are similar. Early-stage ambitions need protection. Not every seed should be exposed before it develops roots. Another reason to guard your intentions is this. People often judge your plans based on their own limitations. Someone who has never built a business may insist your business cannot work. Someone who has never traveled abroad may insist studying overseas is impossible. Someone who has never earned significant income may tell you your financial goals are unrealistic. Notice the pattern. Their advice reflects their experience, not your potential. If you accept every opinion equally, you'll eventually live according to someone else's fears instead of your own vision. There is another danger in speaking too soon. Sometimes talking about goals creates the illusion of progress. You announce your plans. People congratulate you. They praise your ambition. Your brain receives a small reward. Ironically, that reward can reduce your motivation to do the difficult work required to achieve the goal. You enjoyed the feeling of success. Without actually succeeding, Machiavelli would likely argue that results speak louder than intentions. Quiet execution often outperforms loud ambition. Let your work create curiosity. Let your achievements answer questions. Let your consistency become your announcement. Of course, this doesn't mean refusing help. Mentors, trusted friends, and wise advisors are invaluable. The key word is trusted. Share your plans with people who have earned access to them, not with everyone who happens to ask. Trust should be built gradually, not given automatically. One of the strongest people in the room is often the one speaking the least. Not because they lack ideas, but because they understand that words cannot be taken back once released. Before revealing your next move, ask yourself, does this conversation increase my chances of success? Or merely satisfy my desire to talk about it? That single question can save you from unnecessary disappointment. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is strategy. And in a world where many people reveal everything, the person who knows when to remain quiet often gains the greatest advantage.